Oh, you've got some coffee? What's going on over there, Maisie?
Oh yeah, of course.
Terrific.
100%. I'm already on my third cup, so I should be
That's
good.
impressive.
Coffee's coming. All right, everybody. All right, I'm locking in.
You're doing great, Jeff.
I'm locking in. This is A Little Too Quiet. It's the Ferndale Library Podcast, and it's brought to you by the Friends of the Ferndale Library. I'm Jeff, and I'm joined by Emma.
Hi.
And I'm joined by Coffee. And we're joined by Mazey Eddings, USA Today bestselling author of A Brush with Love and Lizzie Blake's Best Mistake, which is fun to say. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I'm also joined by coffee. So I'd like to be sponsored by Big Coffee at some point.
And a new book came out this
Yeah,
summer.
Maisie's fresh off a tour for her newest title.
This is You Won't Forget Me.
You Won't Forget Me.
How's it going? How's your summer? Congrats on the new book.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a good summer. It's flying by. I just finished like the last sort of event for the book a week or two ago, which is, I believe, how I met you, Emma, or maybe I'm wrong. It was in Maryland, right?
I met you in Toledo.
You met, okay, that's right. Okay,
And
sorry.
technically Columbus. I was just all over Ohio for a second.
I was too. Yeah, for a hot second. That's right. I can't keep anything straight, but yeah, it's been a really fun summer, and I got to go on tour with the book, which is fun. And spent a lot of time in Ohio, which is where I'm from originally, and so that was awesome. But yeah, it's been good.
Let's hear a little bit more about your story in general, Mazey. And currently, where are you living and where did you start? You've kind of bounced around. What's your story? And then
Yeah.
we'll get into writing.
How much time do we have?
Ah.
So right now I'm in Western North Carolina, like in the Appalachian Mountains.
Love.
Oh.
But I originally grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. And I lived there until I was like about 14 or 15. And then from there, I moved around quite a bit. Ended up graduating high school in the Los Angeles, California area. Wound up in Asheville, North Carolina for undergrad, and then went to Philly for dental school. And now I'm back in North Carolina, where I live and frolic.
Which
That's
is
so impressive.
Indeed.
Like, as someone who's only lived in one house like their whole life, every time I meet somebody who is like moved so much, I'm just in awe.
yeah.
It has created like such a stress response to move. I think my mom and I like thought about it, and we moved 8 times in 3 years at one point. Like it was just nonstop. So yeah.
Feels like there's like a memoir brewing there.
Yeah, I already know the title.
Okay. Okay. What is it?
It could be worse, but it's pretty bad.
Oh, that's perfect.
That's good.
Ah,
Things are good now. So
I love that.
thank you. Nobody, please.
We'll get into we'll touch on dentist stuff later, but what about your writing life? How long have you been writing? What's the story there? Pun intended.
Yeah, so I have been kind of what I call like a working writer, kind of like a working actor, since 2019. Before that, I'd always loved writing and reading in particular. I'm an autistic only child of divorced parents, so I had like a lot of time alone. And so books were always like my solace, and I would, spend a lot of time with characters and things like that, and telling myself stories as well. But writing was never something I thought I could do. I was like, oh, that's something that like a demigod does. Like that's not a real human job. Like, what do you mean they invent entire worlds? And then, I kind of got myself into the science and medicine track of life and things through college, and was taking as many creative writing courses as I could just for fun. And then when I was in dental school, during my first year, I had kind of an identity crisis, and reading was the one thing I was returning to. And then I started writing as this creative outlet. And I had written short stories before that, but that was the first time I had endeavored in a full-length novel. And I didn't intend to do anything with it or anything like that, but I just I fell in love with the process and the ability to kind of dip out of this world and go into a different one. And then ended up loving the story so much that I was like, well, no harm in seeing how far I can take this. And so I queried with agents and then found one. And then we went on submission with publishers and somebody said yes. And so I've been very, very lucky to have had the opportunities that I have to write. Gosh, I guess this is my 7th book that came out this summer. So yeah, it's been wonderful, and I've primarily been in the adult romance space. But I'm getting ready to pivot into a completely new genre. So yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. But that's beautiful though. I think.
And that's A Brush with Love that like came out while you were going through all of that. And I feel like that A Brush with Love, I will say it's the one that I can't read because, so here's the thing. I have a good reason.
It's a safe space.
My brother-in-law is a dentist named Dan, and my sister-in-law is named Haley.
Oh.
The main characters are Dan and Harper.
Oh, sure.
It feels too close.
Oh, sure. Okay. Mm-hmm.
But
dentist, yes.
I love that you were going through all of the dental school. Like, I don't love that you were going through the identity crisis, but that you were able in this identity crisis to come out with A Brush with Love. Because
Me too. I'm very grateful for that. But you know what? I feel like I should make you a copy where I just like redact all the names.
And I just make them whatever I want them to be.
Yes, you can pick. Yeah, dealer's choice.
That is amazing. Can you do you ever stop and think back like, oh, some of this writing that I was starting to do, seemingly just for myself or for fun, took me down this journey. That's first of all amazing. But then there's the whole flip side of like, well, also you do have to go get a real day job because writing is tough. It's a tough world out there. And the creative outlets that we pursue, they take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But
how badass is it?
It's badass.
That dentistry.
Yeah.
Is what I say. Well, I will say I do. I stop and think about that all the time because I am a true believer that I don't know if everything's preordained, but I do think that everything happens for a reason, and we kind of a lot of hard knocks in life push us towards where we're supposed to be in certain moments. Because I think about all the things that I've had the opportunity to do because of writing. Like I've been to states and cities that I would, I got paid to go to different places across the country. I got to go to Scotland for a book festival, which then inspired like this other novel that I'm working on. And I stop constantly and think about how grateful I am because publishing is it's a lot of hard work, but it's a lot of right place, right time, and the right person saying yes. And so there's this element of luck to it as well that I'm just so grateful of. And the other thing that I'm grateful of is my writing is actually how I paid off my student loans for dentistry. So that felt really good. That's and like awesome. Really I don't know, almost like I like had a lot of like, I don't know if like, what's the word? It almost felt like out of spite. Like, I did that with like a creative endeavor. I paid off.
My fun thing got to pay off the big money I spent for the thing I have to do.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
Emphasis on the word endeavor, right? I think that's kind of that gives you the substance to say, hey, it's worth it to put in all this work because it does. It literally pays off. But it takes what? Patience and fortitude. And
paying off dental school loans is no joke. So that just shows.
I believe it. Let's go back to the first book and what your inspirations for that one was, and then we'll get more into the ways in which you write.
Yeah, so A Brush with Love was my first one, and the setting is dental school, and it's this look at Harper, who is in her final year of dental school, and she's, hyper focused on being the best, becoming an oral surgeon, like doing all these elements and just being very dedicated to essentially the grind of doing all that. And then Dan, the love interest, he's starting his first year of dental school, and he hates everything about it. He's contending with this like family legacy out of a sense of guilt after his late father passed. And I think I was struggling under the weight and pressure and expectations of the program. And I was looking around me and nobody was, at least I don't think anybody was being honest about how hard it was. There was nobody to like commiserate with, nobody to connect with on like how challenging and terrible it felt at the time. And everybody just had on this, like, what do you mean? Everything's fine. Like, they never let anybody see you sweat. And that's just not my MO. I'm very much like, I am sweating. I'm crying. Like, somebody please
talk about it with me.
Yeah, please. I need somebody to talk about it with me. And, you know, and so I wasn't sleeping a whole lot. I was really anxious. I was like, what am I doing? Is this really what I want to do? And a huge comfort and kind of like balm to all of that anxiety was reading romance novels. And so I was reading almost like a book a night because I just like was really going through it. And, you know, the guaranteed happy ending felt like this very safe way to explore angst, frustration, you know, kind of loss, all of these different things that I was feeling. And then one day I was walking to school and these voices popped into my head. And it was this group of friends and they were very voicey. They had a lot of things to say. And I don't know why. I kind of just gave into the urge and the whim to write down what they were saying. And then I kept doing that. And I was like, okay, well, writing a book is kind of more socially acceptable than saying I'm hearing voices. So like, let's just keep going. And then it became this huge escape and this place where I could almost like, my writing process is very much where I feel like the characters are 100% in control and I'm just along for the ride. And so it was nice to kind of let them lead where I'm just transcribing what's happening in their world. Yeah, essentially the characters were, it was this huge relief in a lot of ways to see these characters going through issues that I felt like I was going through myself, but almost watching them play out situations or handle them in ways that I wouldn't have thought of or wouldn't have handled with as much grace or maybe as messily or any of those things. But it was yeah, kind of like finding a group of friends that I needed at the time. And that group of friends ended up being the people followed in the first 3 books of the Brush with Love universe and things like that. And it was just really relieving in so many ways to watch them navigate those situations and also give myself a chance to see how other people would handle stuff.
Yeah, I went full backwards with that series. I read the +1 and loved it because I think it was also like, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it? It's one where I think you have an autistic main character.
In the +1, Jude is dealing with chronic PTSD.
Okay.
Yeah, looking back, I could see it.
And I feel like I feel like there was something like in my brain that like connected with it because I feel like I'd seen you talk about it either online where you were talking about like your autism, and then maybe my brain just was like, oh my god, wait, and then I picked up on it. And like so, like when we were talking with Jackie Kalia, she writes autistic main characters, and when she tried to not write an autistic main character, everybody was like, she's autistic, right?
Yeah.
So, but I remember
I get that so often where people are like, well, so and so's autistic coded, right? And I was like, oh,
well, I guess so.
I was like, I guess she is.
But I remember reading the +1, and that was the first book I read of yours, and I loved it. It's been a couple years, but I remember loving it. And then
that one.
Late Bloomer was the next one.
Sorry.
Late Bloomer was the next one I read, and I really enjoyed it.
Let's talk more about that and how was it during A Brush with Love that you had, I don't want to say epiphany or anything, where it became like fulfilling to you and then hopefully also rewarding to the readers out there to start centering neurodivergent characters and also their relationships and also them coming to happy endings after whatever they're going through?
Yeah, I in A Brush with Love, Harper deals with chronic anxiety. And I wanted so badly for her not to deal with anxiety. I really tried. I think I got like 100 pages in and I was really trying to redirect her. And then at a certain point, I was just like, dang, girl. Yeah, I think we got a diagnosis here. You might have GAD. And then I was like, we also probably should look into getting you on some SSRIs at a certain point. But I think at that time too, because that was, I think I started writing it in 2018. At that point, we weren't seeing a lot of like the neurodivergent rep, mental health. I mean, there was mental health rep in romance novels, but it wasn't as prominent. And then Helen Wong came out with The Kiss Quotient. Mm-hmm. And that book was so game changing for me, where I was like, and at that point, I actually didn't even have my autism diagnosis yet, or my ADHD diagnosis. I was late to getting both of those. But seeing that and seeing it so clearly on the page was just really, really special and like world opening for me. And again, that first book was an endeavor just for myself, where I was not writing it with the intention to have it published or even kind of the hope for that. And so playing with, a character that does deal with mental health issues was really, really rewarding and cathartic. And then, I think in a lot of ways, I didn't set out with like the singular goal to write, different neurodivergencies, but it's so much harder to not write a neurodivergent character. I can't, my framework and like the way that I see the world just doesn't work that way. And so it is very, all of them have dealt with some level of neurodivergence, mental health, all of those different things. Cause I think it's just, the neurotypical mind is an enigma to me that I can't figure out how to crack even in fiction.
And I think that's so fair. And I feel like especially like within the past few years, it's been like not more accepted to be talked about, but it's just been talked about more.
Sure.
Like, and people I feel like are sharing their experiences at a higher rate. I like even here, there was one day where I was like, how many of us are on SSRIs and dying in this humidity? And most of the office said, yeah.
Sure.
So I feel like it's just something that's like become more it's because it's not like it didn't exist, but like I feel like it's become more more talked about,
non-stigmatized too.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
And I think that people are just sick of, I honestly think that so many of us are on SSRIs or need to be, or just like going through a very hard time that like we kind of got sick of like having, the secrecy behind it. Cause it's like, secrets are so silly too. It's like, we should just talk about things, secrets can be fun, but when it comes to like healthcare and like the brain and stuff, I think I'm more for like, what if we just talk it out?
Yeah.
Sure. I was going to reference back to some of the other students who were kind of pulling the fake it till you make it thing, where they weren't really being, I'm not saying they were being dishonest, but I am. Well, maybe like they felt like they could not bring that stuff to the surface if they were dealing with it. So that brings it back to why these books that you're writing and the books that everyone's writing and Kiss Quotient and beyond are so important. Makes it not only just you see representation on the page, but then you just feel more open to
that kind of like unlocked a core memory of like Bookstagram and like book internet when the Kiss Quotient came out, and like it was like it was so huge.
Yeah,
it was huge. I mean, I just got goosebumps thinking about it because it really was like that was such a pivotal moment and so game changing. I think also to see how how much support it got in, you know, like the traditional publishing structure and model, where for so long they weren't taking chances on, you know, books with that kind of rep and stuff. And I think it opened the doors for so many people. And it was like, yeah, it was such a cultural moment within like genre romance, I think.
Yes. Yeah. I kind of ramble my way into generalities here about romance novels because I don't read them as often as Emma does, and then Emma brings all the nuance and sophistication to it. But I feel like the older formulas were very much all about, well, let's get these two to kiss at the end, and then maybe their jobs are interesting, or maybe the circumstances in which they meet are interesting, but you don't delve too deeply, as we do get to now, into the characters and what they're actually going through away from whoever becomes their eventual romantic partner in their private time. Do
you mind if I push against that idea?
Please.
Slightly.
Because generalities.
I think I understand that perspective, and I do think that there is quite a bit. I think that there's plenty of that, and I think that you see that in any kind of genre form as well. You know, police procedurals, mysteries, like it. You know, there's that model and like the framework within which we function. But I do think that historically, romance has been a very cutting edge genre, even from like the bodice rippers of the 70s and 80s, you know, just the intensity of the almost somewhat toxic relationships of the romance novels from the 90s. They've all been snapshots of cultural moments of where we're at as a society when discussing things like women's pleasure, women's autonomy, and also, you know, just like putting it out there, romance has historically been more of like a heteronormative framework, which we're pushing against now as well, which is amazing to get better rep. But I do think that if you look back on the genre, while there can be kind of a lot of copy and paste models of books, it's been the snapshot of where we are in how we discuss relationships, and also what we feel free to explore openly in society versus what needs to kind of be this like fantasy that we push against, right? Where a lot of the bodice rippers traditionally have a, you know, especially historical romance where it's this woman, this virginal woman, kidnapped by pirates, and you know it's this dubious consent or this gray area that played out during a certain time frame of romance novels, but that was working with this idea of the suppression of like women's pleasure, women seeking it out, women being able to talk about it. And so I think that's what's so cool about the genre is there have been all of these phases throughout it that really shift our discussion on what it means to be in a relationship, what it means to, you know, have intimate relationships, romantic relationships and stuff. And I think that's why things like the kiss quotient blew up in the way that they did, because it's such a genre primed for shifting conversations.
Okay. These mics are on stands, but if they weren't, I would drop those last 2 minutes, I'm so glad we're recording it. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And also awesomely put. But Emma, go ahead. I got something to ramble on.
I just didn't have the eloquent words to kind of say a similar thing, but it did also remind me of one of my favorite facts about romance novels is that a lot of them they were pushed to be sold in like drugstores and grocery stores because women used to not have their own money.
Right.
Well, I mean, they like had their own money, but like the money was limited, and so they could buy their romance novels at the grocery store and not have to like go elsewhere, especially if men were gross. Yeah. So like that, like I was literally like, was this something I saw on the internet? But no, I found like an article about it. And so it just kind of shows like, I don't know, like the progression of romance and how the shift goes and how... True. amazing and wonderful it is. And just listening, Mazey had more words for the morning than I did because I have not had the 3 cups of coffee, and that was just so spectacular to listen to.
That was awesome. And my partner just read Judy Blume's Forever from 1975. And so when
I had to read that for my MLIS program,
Mazey was talking about like a romance novel actually going deeper and actually capturing what the pulse of the current times are. Like that's it's talking openly about contraception, it's post-pill, and character like is assessing an autonomy that would have been like so cutting edge in 1975. So yeah, perfectly put. I mean, it's been happening for 50 some odd years.
It also
beyond.
transcends to be cutting edge now because sex in YA books is still very like...
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that book, I mean, I almost feel like Forever is going to be forever ahead of its time. Like that book was so just, that unlocked a memory for me because I like trapped that book somewhere deep in my heart. But like that's so true where... Yeah, and I, especially seeing that in a YA format as well, and especially right now in this moment where we're almost seeing this rise in puritanical values, and we're shifting backwards in conversations about, you know, pleasure and sexual autonomy and things like that. A book like that will be a forever green, ahead of its time sort of thing and reminder too.
Right. Oh my gosh. Where to go? My brain.
I could bring up the fact that Mazey's kind of like ahead of her time and hitting the nail on the head for the moment with the sapphic rock star romance.
Yeah.
Because we also have a local author friend who also wrote a sapphic rock star romance. And then I found out about a third one, and I was just like, you're one of the pioneers of this moment, because there's so many right now. And it's like, Page coming out with their gay hockey romance. I'm like, so did you know Heated Rivalry was going to blow up? And he was like, no, this was written 2 years ago.
Right.
So like, tell us more about like You Won't Forget Me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, You Won't Forget Me, this book. So it's am I doing that, Matt? Like, wait, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So it's my 7th published novel. It has been the hardest one to date that I've worked on. And it's also the one that I've wrestled with for the most amount of years. I usually am a decently quick drafter compared to some indie authors who can write a book in like 6 weeks, which is incredible. I usually would write a book in about 6 months and then spend another 2 to 4 going through revisions and things like that. But You Won't Forget Me is a book that I have been working on and rewriting so many times since I think it was 2022, maybe even 2021. And so it's been a very long time coming. And yeah, so if it could hit some sort of like sweet spot, you know, trend that takes off, that would be super awesome, because that was never, I never was like, oh, I got to get this out right now because I can feel the moment coming.
It kind of made its own moment.
Oh, well, thank you. That would also be very cool to see. And, you know, it was interesting going into it as well. I'm lucky in the sense that my editor is very, very cool with my brain working in a way that's not kind of traditional in how stories are pitched or how books are bought or anything like that. She gives me a lot of free rein with stuff, and a lot of chances to try something different that, you know, it's like sales or the power that be are like, oh, you know, this doesn't sell. And rock star music romances is one that, you know, historically traditional publishing has said, these books don't sell. And but I got the green light to go ahead with it, and so it's the sapphic novel that follows Cubby and Darcy, and it's primarily from Cubby's perspective, and she's the lead singer of this band that's just an absolute mess. Her toxic ex-boyfriend abandoned them, and then had this solo rise to stardom, singing about how bad she was in bed, and she kind of it claps back in a way, inadvertently, with a sort of sexy picture with their other bandmate and her friend Harry. And that goes viral the same night that she hooks up with her best friend Darcy. And she and Darcy are totally hetero, and they're just like besties that just happen to like one night explore each other's bodies, as gals being pals do. And then they wake up the next morning and Darcy is pretending none of it happened. And so at the same time of this huge emotional kind of like what the hellism between their friendship, they also are thrust into the limelight and go on this tour as a band, and it's shoestring budget, but they're having to create music and release songs, and so I did part of the novel in verse, because I wanted to try something new with the narrative form of it, and kind of explore that angst and that coming to age, like being in your very early 20s and not knowing what you're doing, and wanting to also be somebody creating something honest and true with art at the same point where it merges with like pop culture and public opinion, which I think writing is also something that it's very much you are creating art that is then packaged to be consumed in a very consumerist society and stuff. And so it was an exploration of that too. So sorry, I was rambling there, but yeah.
No, that's great. Because I also am thinking about how there is this moment of the sapphic rock star romance, and all three that I have now heard of and seen and read are so different, and it's so amazing that the happenstance of publishing has brought about like a very similar vibe, and like basically it feels like a little charcuterie board of like really good books where they all have something different, but like something tying them together. The other books I'm talking about, I feel like are also Motor City Love Song by Lisa Pierce, and this one that isn't out yet, it's called Creative Differences by Annabelle Paulson and Lydia Wang.
Ooh, that's a great title. That is a really, really good title.
They're fiancés.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because I think there was like a week where I just kept going, Jeff, there's more sapphic rock stars.
It's a thing.
I know. We are being so fed with the sapphic rock stars.
And I'm so obsessed with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a niche that I didn't know we needed.
We do.
But I think that's what's so cool about music too, is it's like, it is so fundamental, everybody, even people that are like, I'm not crazy about music, which is like, I don't know that I've ever met people that don't like music, but even I feel like people that aren't super into music still have like a favorite song or are transported to a very specific moment when they hear something. And I think it's so cool to watch art infuse art and inspire it in that way. And it's just like, it's so exciting.
It's also exciting because Jeff is also the biggest music guy ever.
Oh, really?
No, biggest music guy ever. You have a radio show. He's the biggest proponent for like indie artists. So every time I'm like, Jeff, we have more romance for you. I'm just doing my job. Jeff asks the really important, really smart questions. I get us off track with silly questions.
I want to come back to the latest book, but I want to talk about other books too. Specifically one because it sort of has the name of my cat in the title, and that's Tilly in Technicolor. And so my cat's full name is Matilda, but
of course.
And in theory, I was like, oh, great, because I also really love Tilda Swinton. So I'm sure when I'm walking around the house, I'll just start calling her Tilda. That's great. But then it quickly became just Tilly. Anyway, but also that kind of involves arts to a degree in those characters. So there's something compelling about creative folks trying to figure out how in the heck they're going to even have a relationship or even open up. But I'd love to hear more about that book and developing those characters, just to learn more about how you develop characters in general.
Yeah, Tilly in Technicolor is my YA romance, and it's kind of upper YA. They're both 18. And it starts with this meat disaster on an international flight between Tilly and Oliver. And I do want to say, everything that happened on that is inspired by my own travel disasters.
I love a meat disaster. I need more meat disasters.
I do too. I love, because it's so true to life. Like when does a meet cute is so just impossible, I feel like. But a meat disaster is kind of every experience I've ever had with a human.
Also, this idea of meat cute, being a vegan, I associate the word disaster with meat.
Wait, what?
That's it. Get it? Sorry. That was a too complex pun. We'll keep going.
That went way over my head. I'm so sorry. I need a 4th cup of coffee to get that one.
You got it. It'll look better. It'll look better transcribed. Meat.
Oh, meat. Is it meat? Okay, I gotcha.
It also took me a second.
Vegan.
Yeah. I got it. But
all right, we're back.
So they're seatmates and they're polar opposites. Tilly has really unmanaged ADHD. She has no idea what she wants out of her life. She just knows that she doesn't want to go to college because the structure of school has just really crushed her the past 18 years or so. And then Oliver is autistic and he has everything figured out. He sees the world through colors and color theory and the psychology of color. And it's how he relates to people, relates to social situations, and navigates the world. And he knows, kind of what he wants to do with it. And so they leave this flight hoping to never see each other again. And the next morning, they realize that they're co-interns for the same company and going to spend the summer traveling around Europe together.
Oh, no.
And there's like only one bed. Oh, no. What will we do? I love that. That book is so special to me because I think those characters are some of the most, I think, sentimental to me. And I care about them so deeply. And I loved how at the crux of it, they both need different ways to navigate the world, where Tilly's is through writing and language and Oliver's is through colors. And like, that's they realize that they both just have this very deep love and excitement for the world that is hard, because of these different neurodivergencies. They're often sidelined in this world and not, have trouble communicating as far as like in social interactions or connections or things like that. And so they find these mechanisms to really engage with people and feelings and life. And that brings them together. And so they both have this, sort of art that's theirs, and it's discovering how to share that and share it very proudly and loudly. And share it with each other too. And it's just a very tender story that, has always just really held a special spot in my heart.
Love that. Let's bring it back to, You Won't Forget Me, though. I want to hear more about, bringing those characters to life. And again, similarly, they're going to be thrown into situations where they're going to have to be in close quarters, and there's tension there.
Yeah, and those You Won't Forget Me was originally supposed to be a companion novel to Tilly in Technicolor.
I knew it.
Because the main character, Cubby, is Oliver's twin sister. And so the band and all of the characters, or most of the characters in You Won't Forget Me, are introduced in Tilly in Technicolor. And and that's where I first, I first met Cubby. And she was so intriguing to me as a character, and very like every time that she kind of showed up within that story, and it's only a couple of chapters, I found her so interesting and so dynamic and so just scene stealing as far as like in my brain. And then Darcy was always with her, and so that was where I first met them. And it was supposed to also be You Won't Forget Me was originally supposed to be another YA novel, and I think I sold it as a very like rompy, campy YA where they're going on a tour, a band tour around Iceland. And then I realized that would be like 2 stops, because 66% of Iceland's population is in Reykjavik, so it's like that wouldn't be a very long tour. And then I was still writing it, and I realized, I was like, ooh, Cubby is having very adult feelings and struggles and like challenges in a way that I was having a difficult time doing justice to within a YA framework. And that's not to say that young people aren't experiencing very adult challenges, especially with something like depression, sexual identity, all of those things. It just wasn't. I realized that by the time I was like engaging with Cubby as a character, she had grown up a little bit in a way where she would have needed to regress, and she is very stubborn. So she was just unwilling to do that for me and for my contractual book obligation. And so, again, I was very lucky that my editor lets me kind of have some free reign with certain aspects of things. And so we transitioned it to adult, or more new adult, as far as the novel goes. And and then Tilly and Oliver make a cameo in You Won't Forget Me, and it was a really nice full circle moment. Awesome. And I loved seeing them as siblings.
I don't think I've ever seen like a YA adult crossover like that.
Yeah, take that, Marvel.
Yeah. Marvel has nothing on the
right.
Mazey Eddings.
Marvel's cinematic universe, more like the Mazey cinematic universe.
Yeah. Mazey Eddings literary universe, the milieu.
Mazey, we only have time for 2 quick questions, and I have some, unless Emma has one.
I was just gonna do the usual of tell us what you're doing next, which I feel like was probably one of your questions.
That'll be the third question. Here's 2 quick ones. Of all your characters, which one, and they're going to be cheesy, I apologize in advance. Of all your characters, which one would you really like to go get a cup of coffee with and vent with? And then of all your characters, which ones do you think your cats would like the best if they visited?
Oh, those are hard, actually. Of all my characters, I'm so enamored with Lizzie Blake from my second novel. That was one of them, like, I'm sure at the time I hated I was like angry and hated writing, and which is a natural part of the process where while you're doing it, you're like, why am I doing this? But when I think back on it, like every moment of writing her book felt really fun and exciting and refreshing. And so I was always caught off guard and very surprised by the things that she would say. And so I think for me, that would be the most interesting to have coffee with, and like just see where she goes next with things, because it did feel very surprising to me while I was spending time with her on the page. And then as far as which character my cats would like the most, well, my bigger cat that does the weird sock thing, she's never met a human that she wasn't absolutely devoted to almost instantly. I do think that she would probably really be into Dan from A Brush with Love. And then my smaller cat, Zadie, who really just does terrorize everything every physical object that I hold any sentimental value to, she destroys. But then if another person comes into the house, she acts like, oh my God, I'm under attack, and she runs and hides. But I think that she would really, really love Jude. I think that she would come out for him because she just has like a sense of like quiet, gentle people. And I think that would be him for sure.
Beautiful. And now what's happening next? What are you looking forward to next?
I am writing a horror novel. Yeah, which is really exciting. I'm writing a contemporary gothic horror novel, or a bit of a horromance if you're nasty. Where there's a romantic, through line with it. And yeah, I'm finishing that up. Well, I probably use too liberally. I think I'm on like the third or fourth round of revisions, and I always feel this way at some point during a book, but it's at that point where I'm like, this will just never be done. The book itself, but no, it's called The Bargain, and it's set to come out fall 2027. And yeah, it takes place in Scotland, and is this kind of weird, creepy look at the diaspora and mythology, and also generational trauma. And like, I've been pitching it as Eat the Rich, a love story meets love bombing, a horror story. So yeah.
I need a library category sticker that says Hormance on it now, I feel.
Yeah, you should do that. You should get one. That would be great.
Come on, Demco, get it together. I'm so excited for that. I feel like there's a lot of like romance authors, I feel like, switching into like a darker tone. And I say a lot, but the only other one I'm thinking of is, well, no, two. I can think of two. Rosie Dannon and Alexandra Vasti are both kind of stepping into the paranormal. Right. And while yours sounds like more horror, I love that we're doing that pivot, because I feel like it's so fun to see like...
Yeah, I have one more romance novel on contract that's also in the works, but I could not get myself to write it, especially in like a rom-com fashion, the past year or two, with just the state of everything. And it was weighing on me so deeply. I was having a really hard time kind of tapping into that traditional, love and goofiness framework and things that I've written in the past. And I ended up getting, a chance to write this instead and explore these much darker themes. And it's been very cathartic, and kind of important for me to process everything happening in the world too right now.
Yeah, and that's amazing that you get to like do that, and your publisher is like so sick and cool. Yeah, because I feel like the publisher at large, like the big entity of publisher, I feel like sometimes doesn't let the fun things happen.
No, and like I said, my editor for my romances, her name's Eileen Rothschild at St. Martin's Press, and she really just has been so wonderful. And then this horror novel, I'm working with a different publisher and editor, and my editor's name is Rachel Kelly, and it's been so cool to see their different styles too. And I don't know, I feel very lucky to have had two editors that are letting me do very different things and kind of concurrently too, and collaborate on how the books will exist in the world separately. And so, yeah, I'm very, very grateful for the chance to tell such a different story and a darker one too.
Is The Bargain going to be under Mazey Eddings, or are you going to have a Hormance name?
I think we were originally going to do like M. Eddings, but the powers that be in publishing have said we're going to do it under Mazey, I believe, the last I heard. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, we're going to have to make the marketing very clear here, though, that like my other books are like a silly, goofy time, and this is like
This is very serious. This is like
it's the spooky, scary time, and there's still going to be a little bit of banging it out, as needed. Nothing like a danger bang. As I've always said.
Exactly.
All right.
Now it's going to be under the Mazey Eddings name.
All right. Danger Bangs and Disaster Meats are new additions.
Put that on a t-shirt.
To my vocabulary. Thank you so much.
I should put that on a t-shirt. That's a good idea.
Mazey, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. You were so wonderful to talk to, and thanks for chatting with me so early.
Oh my gosh, of course. Of course.
I really appreciate that.
All right, everybody. This has been A Little Too Quiet. It's the Ferndale Library podcast, brought to you by the Friends of the Ferndale Library. It's also brought to you by co-host Emma, who develops our romance collection. Emma, thank you.
Hi.
And goes around to various cities and finds all these wonderful authors like Mazey. Also, unofficially sponsored by the romance bookstore across the street, Love and Other Books. Stay tuned for more on that. And go follow Mazey. We'll have links to Mazey's website in the show notes. Mazey, thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah.